History has never been a neutral witness, because it is almost always written by those who survive, those who win, those who have the power to decide what should be remembered and what must be erased. And that is exactly why there was one battle so dangerous to the narrative of power that it was deliberately buried beneath silence. Footnotes and half-truths, a battle not forgotten by accident, but pushed into obscurity because it proved something. Empires could never afford people to understand that numbers, weapons, and banners do not guarantee victory, and that even the most dominant forces in history can be stopped by a small group of determined fighters who refuse to break. This was not a battle fought for glory, wealth, or conquest, but one driven by survival, resistance, and the raw instinct to stand firm when retreat was no longer an option. And from the very beginning, the imbalance was obvious, because on one side stood a force that believed itself invincible, feared across regions, hardened by countless victories, commanded by generals who assumed this would be another effortless campaign added to their legacy, while on the other side were fewer men, fewer resources, inferior equipment, and no promise of reinforcements, only strategy, discipline, and an unshakable resolve that turned weakness into defiance. When the first clashes began, everything appeared to confirm the Empire's confidence. Their formations advanced, their weapons struck with precision, and their commanders expected the enemy lines to collapse within hours. Yet something went wrong almost immediately, because the resistance did not retreat, did not scatter, and did not surrender. And every time the Empire pushed forward, it found itself slowed, redirected, and trapped by terrain, timing, and tactics it had underestimated, turning what should have been a swift victory into a prolonged struggle that tested patience rather than strength. As the hours stretched on, confusion replaced certainty, and the realization began to spread quietly through the ranks that this enemy was not fighting to win headlines or territory, but to exhaust, disrupt, and dismantle confidence itself, forcing the Empire to bleed time, morale, and belief with every advance. And this is where the true danger of the battle emerged, because it was no longer about casualties, but about psychology, about the terrifying thought that dominance might not be permanent. Soldiers who once marched without fear began to hesitate. Formations tightened, not with discipline, but with anxiety. And commanders who had never questioned victory now faced the unfamiliar weight of doubt, while on the other side, every loss, hardened resolve, every fallen fighter became a reason to hold longer. And every failed assault proved that endurance could be more powerful than brute force. By the time days passed, the battlefield had transformed into a graveyard of expectations, where neither side celebrated, but only one side understood what was happening. Because the Empire was not being defeated in a single decisive moment. It was being slowly unmade, stripped of its myth of invincibility, piece by piece, hour by hour, until the outcome no longer mattered as much as the message it carried. When the fighting finally ended, there was no triumphant march, no victory songs, and no clear narrative to present to the world, only exhaustion, silence, and the unspoken truth that something irreversible had occurred, that an empire had survived on maps but died in perception. And that realization terrified those responsible for recording history. Because if people learned that a smaller force had exposed such weakness, then loyalty would crack, resistance would spread, and future enemies would believe that victory was possible. And so, the damage control began. Reports were rewritten, numbers quietly adjusted, defeats rebranded as strategic withdrawals, and the names of those who held the line were erased or reduced to anonymity, while textbooks either ignored the battle entirely or buried it beneath vague language that stripped it of meaning, ensuring that generations would grow up unaware of the moment when certainty failed and courage reshaped reality. Yet history has a flaw, because truth does not disappear. It waits hidden in forgotten records, fragmented accounts, stories passed down quietly beyond official approval, and this battle survived in those shadows, not as a legend of triumph, but as a warning that power is fragile when it depends on fear alone. The most dangerous aspect of this forgotten battle was never the bloodshed or the losses, but the lesson it carried, that no system is unbreakable, no empire is eternal, and no authority is immune to resistance driven by conviction. And that is precisely why historians, rulers, and institutions chose silence over honesty. Because acknowledging this battle would mean admitting that control is an illusion sustained only as long as people believe in it. And today, by revisiting this story, we are not uncovering a secret to glorify violence or shame the past, but to understand how history truly works, how it selects its heroes, how it buries its warnings, and how moments of extraordinary defiance are hidden not because they failed, but because they succeeded too well. And this is why this battle was forgotten, because it revealed a truth too powerful for history to safely remember.